Welcome to the Nutritional Revolution podcast. I'm your host, Kyla Chanel. I'm a performance nutritionist specializing in sex differences in sport. I work with athletes from all over the world through my online private practice and sports nutrition programs. We here at Nutritional Revolution are here to cut through the BS promoted in the media and give you the science, literally straight from the research articles, as well as share client success stories and experiences around nutrition and racing. Please keep in mind, this podcast is created strictly for educational purposes only and should never be used as a replacement for medical diagnosis and treatment. If you like what you hear today, we would love for you to subscribe and share. Hey, you guys, before we get into the episode today, I want to tell you something I'm really excited about. On June 2nd at 5 p.m. Pacific, I'm sitting down live with professional ultrarunner Danny Moreno, and I want you in the room. We're calling it Fueling for Success, and here's why I think this one's going to be really special. Danny's heading into Broken Arrow 64K at the end of June, right in the heart of summer race season. And if you're gearing up for something big yourself, whether that's your own A race or something like Western States, this is the conversation you want to be a part of. We're going to talk about how Danny's fueling ahead of a key mountain race, how she handles hydration and gut training at the pro level, how she navigates recovery and injury setbacks, and what actually shifts in her nutrition when race season gets close. But honestly, the biggest appeal here is access. This is your front row seat to speak directly to a professional ultra runner and ask her your personal questions. Not a panel, not a webinar where you're muted the whole time. This is a real conversation with Danny, and I'll be there too, sharing how we've worked together from the sports nutrition side. So you're also getting a peek behind the curtain of what an athlete and nutritionist relationship actually looks like in practice. When you reserve your spot, you can also submit your questions ahead of time so we can make sure they get answered. We're capping this at only 15 people. That's intentional. This is meant to be intimate. So don't sit on this one, you guys. Grab your spot. The link is in the show notes. I'll see you on June 2nd. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Nutritional Revolution podcast. This is Kyla, your host, and today we have for you guys a returning guest, Hillary Allen, and she is a professional trail and ultra runner, coach, and speaker based in Colorado. She has represented the U.S. at the World Mountain and Trail Running Championships and is known for her resilience after surviving a life-threatening fall early in her career. Hillary is the author of Out and Back and is currently pursuing a master's in applied sports psychology, where she focuses on the mental side of endurance performance. Through her coaching, writing, and speaking, she blends science and experience to help athletes build both physical and mental strength. So this is an awesome episode, as was our first episode with Hillary. You guys will absolutely enjoy it. Enjoy. All right, you guys, welcome back. And we have Hillary Allen. Welcome back. Thank you for joining us for a second time. I'm pumped to have you back.
Yeah, same. I know. This is such a great podcast. So happy to be back chatting. Thanks for having me.
And for our listeners, if you did not listen to the first episode, I'll link in the show notes, but it was amazing. We went over your book too. If you have not read Hillary Allen's book, Out and Back, definitely go order it right now because it's a serious page turner. It's really incredible. And yeah, highly recommend, like top 10 books for sure.
I'm going to work on another one. So
sweet. Oh, coming down the pipeline.
Yeah.
I've got another one in the works. Is this going to be about any your grad school stuff?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So,
okay.
Yeah, all that to it. Yeah, I actually just started writing it earlier this year. So
nice. Oh my gosh, that's super exciting. Okay. Okay, but before we dive into all this fun nuggets of info, we have to do your 2 truths and a lie. So I'm going to let you break those down.
So my favorite color is purple.
Okay.
My father is from the UK.
Okay.
And I worked at a chemical company.
Ooh. I'm trying to remember nuggets from our first conversation if we covered this. I feel like the chemical company feels true for some reason in my brain. Favorite color is purple. I feel like that's the lie for some reason. But don't tell me the answer.
Okay.
I'm going to stick with that one.
Okay.
I'm going to stick with that one. All right. Well, okay. So it's been a minute since we chatted with you. And for our listeners, it is end of April 2026. Hillary has been posting on the socials about a little boo-boo? A little
I
boo-boo that's
know.
happened?
Oh no.
Do
A
you wanna
little
update us?
injury. Yeah, so it's always hard. It's always
Yeah.
hard. I've had a lot of injuries in my career. I know it's like part of the thing about, training at a high level, about being an athlete, trying to get the most out of yourself. You're like walking this tightrope. But yeah, I have a stress fracture,
Oh,
and
shoot.
I don't have a history of stress fractures. If you read my book, I have a history
Yeah.
of like traumatic fractures, but
Right.
so I'm generally consider myself, someone this is actually perfect to talk about it because I've been learning a lot. And
Mm.
it's a sacral stress fracture. So it's like
Oh,
in the
okay.
kind of a bigger bone, but
Mhm.
I'm learning so much. I learned this a while ago, but I'm like relearning it. It's like, oh yeah, like there's two kind of different types of bones. One is
Mhm.
like basically slower healing. It's just basically the hormonal regulation of like the osteoclasts and blasts, which is like the bone making and breaking down because
Mhm.
bone is a very dynamic tissue. And so yeah, it was like basically a favorable region of my sacrum that broke. But still, I was like, actually, today was my first day off crutches
Nice.
around the house. So I'm trying to like figure that out. And then, yeah, like I had to offload it, and it's been a challenge. Yeah.
Yeah. For our listeners maybe that maybe are dealing with some pain, like what did the stress fracture in the sacral area feel like? Like how long was it happening? And then what made you go get somebody to look at it?
Right. So this is actually the tricky part. And this is something that was very confusing. It just happened on one run. Like,
Oh.
and this is what I've been learning, that sacral stress fractures, I know like Molly Seidel had them, some roadrunners,
Mhm.
like, men and women get them, but they're actually not common. And they can be misdiagnosed or like basically undiagnosed for a
Mm.
while because like your sacrum sits between your two hip bones, like the little triangle piece that ultimately makes
Mhm.
the tailbone, right? And
Mm.
so there's a lot of like it's not full weight bearing, right? So it's like you're
Yeah.
off, when you're running as a single leg motion, but still it's not like totally all of your weight, right? Like you feel something in your tibia or your foot.
Mhm.
But the pain can be dissipated like across your lower back, like lower back tightness.
Mm.
And I think why mine was I didn't realize what was happening is I was doing a lot of international travel for racing and also for like traveling home and for some other like work things that I had. And so I was like, oh, it's just like maybe my lower back is tight from travel, or
Mm.
I had some maybe adductor tightness of like maybe something leading to like an instability of like the like pelvic floor or that area.
Hmm.
But it would always resolve itself with, body work and stretching and strength work. And so I was like, okay,
Mhm.
I'm in the clear. So for me, it actually just happened one time during this one run. I think
Wow.
I was basically unaware of what was happening. Or maybe if I was kind of riding the line. I think for me, you can look back like 4 to 8 weeks before the training error point. And that could either
Okay.
be like an up in mileage and vert, some training stimulus. Mine's actually been quite stable. But the
Hmm.
thing that was different for me was the amount of travel. And I basically didn't miss a workout, but I was like traveling, probably circadian rhythm. I was basically under recovered
Oh.
is probably what happened to me.
Wow.
And if you're training at a high level and like, that's relative to anyone. If you're training at a high level and you basically are under recovered for even as short of a period, I think of 2 to 3 weeks,
Mhm.
that is enough to do it. And this is what I'm learning. And so,
Wow.
and also I think, yeah, for me, it felt like a piriformis like cramp, like in the muscle.
Mm. Mm.
What really was interesting to me is that I immediately offloaded it, was on the bike, no pain on the bike.
Hmm.
And then but it wasn't getting better after a week. So I went in to, have a great sports med doctor here, Teddy Bross. He's based in the Golden, Colorado. I'm working with him for years. He has his own
Mm.
practice. And, we just got through an MRI for a safe measure, and it came back as a fracture. But really the interesting part is like I'm a neuroscientist and I love, you know, all of that. And it was like my brain was telling me that something was wrong. Like that it wasn't
Mhm.
just a simple muscle thing.
Mm.
Like it was like guarding me. Like I didn't want to put full weight on it. And that to
Mhm.
me is a sign for someone who spends so much time, moving and listening to her body. And, after what happened to me, I've made this, you know, a deal with myself that I'm never gonna run through pain. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, in a nutshell.
Shoot. And so you're saying it all like you noticed it right away in one run, like one run, all of a sudden there was.
Started as like this cramping feeling in my
Mhm.
shoulders. I was like, "Oh, I need to like stretch this out." And then it was basically like, "Okay, like I can't run downhill. Like this is bad."
Mm.
And so then I had to like get an Uber home. And
Mm.
yeah, and then after that basically just wasn't running that week and it kind of wasn't getting better like even
Wow.
just when I was offloading it and like I didn't even really want to like I'm a pretty active person like walking around. I didn't really want to like
Mhm.
walk around the house.
Yeah.
And so yeah, then that happened. But I mean,
Shoot.
my point is like most people notice it like, "Oh, it just happened in one run." But it has been like,
Yeah.
I think we just need to I don't know. It's like it can be tricky because I think runners have a high pain tolerance. And mine I
Mhm.
wouldn't necessarily describe it as pain even after it happened. It was like a more
Mhm.
of an instability.
Mm.
But some for sure it's pain. For me,
Yeah.
don't listen to me. I have a very like messed up view of pain. So
You've experienced all kinds of pain, and had to continue, yeah, to
yeah,
and
what I
bear with that,
consider
right?
painful, like, literally, like, when I broke my foot, like, a complete fracture, it was, like, displaced, like,
Oh
up
my
and down and side to side. My PT was, like, pushing on it. I was also pushing on it, and I'm like, "Yeah, Matt, it's, like, 80%. I think I'm gonna go try to run tomorrow. It should be fine."
gosh.
So,
Oh,
pain should be your
no.
guide, just maybe
Yes.
not, like, my
Yes.
pain.
Wow. So with your past history of like the traumatic injury stuff and then now this, like how are you navigating this sacral stress fracture
Yeah.
um from like a recovery, and obviously you were not weight bearing for a period of time, but are you doing any other things to like help with that healing process?
Yeah, so basically it's just kind of a good reminder and I think it's like, as you get older, any athlete like and especially as a woman, I think we definitely
Mhm.
have to pay attention to bone health. It's something like in my family I've always paid attention to. My mother was osteopenic.
Oh shoot, yeah.
But, like, this was due to basically some dietary issues when she was living in Nepal in the Peace Corps. Like, she
Oh.
wasn't getting enough protein.
Mhm.
And so, like but she's, done stuff to fix that. So, it's always been something top of mind, but also, like, as an active woman and, like, you have to so it's a good reminder to, like, check my labs again, like, get
Mhm.
all the information just to make sure, I have the full picture.
Mhm.
And so so then it's making sure all my I mean I like nutrition is very important to me. I grew up my father's a biochemist and like I also love science and so I love cooking. I love, like whole foods. I love just eating well. And so I feel like
Yeah.
I get a lot of nutrients from a good diet. It's something that I care about,
Mm.
but also when you're training high, you have to figure out if you're missing anything. And like even living in
Mhm.
Colorado, I need to double check this, but it's something I read, I think, a while ago is like even vitamin D3, I spend so much time outside, but there's not a lot of good sources of D3.
Yeah.
And so making sure like that's okay. And like, even though I spend a lot of time outside, if I'm not getting enough of like the exact like angle of light into my cells to like, basically knock off, I think this hydroxyl group to then like go and like, it allows like a vitamin D to be activated and then absorb calcium. So it's like,
Yeah.
I need to make sure I have that. So yeah, basically doing all the things. I met with a specialist. We actually had to reschedule this podcast. I met with a
That's
specialist who does shockwave therapy, which
mm.
helps. It's basically just high energy sound waves, which you can localize. I think it's like a depth of 6 centimeters, and
Wow.
and it basically can like stimulate. It causes like local edema, but that's like kind of like almost like a
Mm.
signal to be like, okay, let's
Mhm.
go here and repair it because it's like a slower healing area, just where it's
Mhm.
situated. So yeah, trying all those
Wow.
things.
Yeah.
Also trying blood flow restriction
Mm.
is
How
basically
do you
just
do that with like the sacral area?
well, yeah. So basically, with blood flow restriction, I basically put it on the leg,
Okay.
like a little like the little tourniquet or whatever,
Mhm.
and I can like passively cycle. Like
Mm.
ride my bike, or you could do like non-weight bearing exercises like leg lifts and stuff like that. So it's like
Mhm.
limb. So I mean, it's not a perfect system, but it's like the
Mhm.
best you can do. So
Yeah.
there's some research that shows it can help in like overall like I think for a lot of things, if you're not weight bearing, you can lose like muscle mass and things
Mhm.
like this. But a lot of those factors can be involved in bone healing as well as like muscle hypertrophy. So
Yeah.
Yeah, trying to do all the things.
Yeah, goodness. I was at a conference recently and there was a researcher presenting on the vitamin D thing, and he gave an example that I had never heard before about, which I thought was pretty cool and like applicable for Gen Pop to kind of like understand if they're making vitamin D or not. And he said if you're standing outside and your shadow is longer than you are tall, so use your best judgment there, you are not making vitamin D. I thought that was a good way to kind of like,
Yeah, because this is exactly it's like 'cause how I think about it, we're obviously, like, on a globe, on a sphere, and, like,
yeah,
es especially where you are, like, I'm at high altitude. So, there's only certain times of day where the sun can be, like, high enough or low enough to be able to do that shadow analogy, which is, like, the
right.
angle of the sun, because you need the little photons to come in and
Yes.
your skin at the
Yeah.
correct angle. It's crazy,
It
it's
is crazy. And then you basically have to be naked too.
No,
Like
totally, exactly. So you have to have, like, all the things, and then you don't wanna die of skin cancer, so we have to put
yeah.
sunscreen on. Um,
Yeah.
so
You just don't wanna burn. You don't wanna
yeah,
burn is like the big thing,
exactly.
but
Yeah.
yeah, I thought that was a really interesting way of explaining it. I was like, I can like that's I think
Mhm.
that's easy for people to understand. Do you like with the diet stuff too, are you I mean, you mentioned the protein concept too with your mom, and I think a lot of people too don't realize like the matrix of bone tissue is proteins,
Mhm. Yeah.
and they miss that I think a lot.
Exactly, and so it's just making sure and I think it's kinda tempting for, it's like athletes if you have to kinda take like a well, I mean, and I'm better at this transition now since I've been injured so many times and I actually like riding my bike, but even if you're kind of just a new routine and you're like, less active, I've had some trouble sleeping just because I think it's like I'm stressed, like my brain is
Mm,
whatever, I'm like less tired because I'm not I like my
yeah.
routine is different, a little bit less active, and so that can be a bit tricky, but it's like, yeah, you have to like, if your body's healing, I mean, you just have to, like, listen to those hunger cues, and then just I think
Mhm,
for me, it's just making sure I prioritize that of,
mhm.
the good quality protein to get in. Mm.
Yeah. Do
Yeah.
you, are you trying to prioritize, like, any vitamins or minerals too in addition to your diet?
Yes, I actually just got back my lab results and everything is in the normal range, but I'm just
Mhm.
basically like kind of like upping making sure because I mean I have good calcium for my diet, but just making sure I have like just supplementing with D3 and
Mhm.
calcium.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I'm adding because it's like I think just in this time where it's kind of more like repairing and then
Mhm.
repeat the labs to see if I need to kind of keep incorporating that for long term.
Hey everyone, when's the last time you actually looked under the hood with comprehensive blood work? Most of you are training 10, 15, 20 hours a week, but have no idea if your body has what it needs to perform. Here's what we see constantly: low ferritin tanking your aerobic capacity, vitamin D deficiency that's increasing your injury risk or keeping you sick, elevated cortisol from overtraining, thyroid markers that are normal but not optimal for an athlete. So that's why we created our full athlete blood panel. We test everything: complete metabolic panel, advanced lipids, iron stores, vitamin D, B12, folate, magnesium, testosterone, cortisol, thyroid, insulin, hemoglobin. You name it, it's over 20 markers that directly impact your performance and your recovery as an athlete. It's $371 and includes the lab fee through Quest, and you can get tested as soon as tomorrow morning. Check the show notes for the link to order. Some state restrictions do apply, but it's available in most of the US. Stop guessing and get the data. So how long were you on crutches for already?
So I basically almost 3 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then what do they say for like healing time?
Yeah, so this is tricky. So I mean, obviously, I think elite athletes can maybe push it a little bit more.
Mm,
Maybe I think it's also just because the difference there is just like our ability to recover because that's
mm,
basically what you're training. If you're training at a high level, it's
mhm.
like the ability to do it day in and day out at a
Yeah.
pretty like a higher volume than the majority of the population. So typically, I think there's been a big range. It's been anywhere between like 3 to 6 months.
Wow.
But so 2 months, I think, is, like, with doing, extra stuff like shockwave therapy is probably when
Mhm,
I can start that, and then return to volume over, like, that 2 to, like, 6-month type
hmm,
thing for full
mhm.
run volume, right? I was reading a few studies about this, and, about, like so it's really the interesting thing too, and this was I mean, we can kind of get into this, but I actually had this, like, stigma too in my head about, like, "Oh my gosh, like, what's going on?" Like, I think of, like, these bigger bones of,
Mm,
like, red S and like, low energy availability, which is something that,
Mhm.
me, Corinne, and Keely talk a lot about on our podcast. Like there's a lot of
Mhm.
there. And I talk a lot about it with the athletes that I coach because there's this big stigma, like, especially with women, of like,
Yeah.
they don't want to eat or fuel their body because running
Mhm.
is like this like scarcity mindset as opposed to
Mhm.
like feeding your body and see what it can do. Learning about this thing is like, okay, well, do I need to like figure this stuff out? And like I said before, even in maybe a period of like 2 to 3 weeks of maybe having a little bit of that, maybe hormone dysregulation, like not sleeping enough or having maybe a little bit higher cortisol levels, which all kind of
Mm.
feeds into that, not being like chronically underfueled,
Mhm.
but and I'm someone who gets their cycle regularly. So, that could be an indication. Like, I always thought I was good with that, but maybe it's like
Mhm.
a short amount of time where I remember when I was traveling a lot in those races, like my period was a couple weeks late. And I'm like, huh,
Mm.
okay,
Mm.
well, that is enough time to like figure
Yeah.
that out. It's like these acute areas of these acute periods in your time and your life where it could be like low energy availability. It's just
Mhm.
so hyper important to make sure you're on top of this
Yeah.
all of the time. And yeah, it's kind of, it's like getting a full picture. It's like maybe I'm not someone who it has a history of bone stress injuries. Because I feel like the 99% of the time I'm on top of it, but it's just a
Yeah.
really good reminder. And yeah, like all these different factors that kind of that add to it.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah, the different layers of stress. Like you're saying, even if it's like maybe you're meeting your energy demands, but I mean, if you're not sleeping, you're not providing your tissues some time to recover,
And that's
then
hormonal dysregulation, which is very highly involved in the specific region of the sacrum that I broke and this type
mm,
of bone. So these are all the things that I'm learning. So it's like
interesting.
exactly. So if I'm getting all the energy and like because I was very high energy. I hadn't noticed any of that, like those changes. In fact, since the last time that we spoke on this podcast, the biggest change that I've made in my training is I've been training less.
Mm.
And I've actually been feeling really good. So it's
Yeah.
awesome. But yeah, so I don't know. It's like it's just it's cool, I guess, to learn. It's just like
Mhm.
how sensitive the
Yeah.
body can be if you're trying to like push it. And it's like
Yeah.
it's just a reminder of like, all right, we got to give it what it needs. And like that's really the thing that I'm trying to lean into the most at this time period is like, yeah, I can be disappointed, I can be upset, I can be FOMO of like missing out on the races that I had planned.
Mm.
But my body's asking for a break and it's asking
Yeah.
for a little bit of reset. And the best thing that I could do is give that to it because it's done
Mhm.
so much for me. And I want to continue to do so
Yeah.
much with it. And so it's always hard, but like I'm leaning really into this. I feel it's like my life's work now of like was in neuroscience and then like the accident recovery and like resilience. And now I'm, like back in school for applied sports psychology because this is what I want to, that's like the legacy that I want to build and
Mhm.
contribute in the world of trail and ultra running and endurance sports. So I'm really leaning into that
I
to
love that.
share my
Yeah.
journey. Yeah.
I mean, when you have the personal experience too, and then the motivation and knowing, yeah, what can come maybe if you don't have the like mental toolkit, after an injury and the different sides of it that you can see. So, I mean, kind of on that note too, like I mean, you've experienced an injury before, obviously, when this happened, like, what is the mental shift that occurs? Like, what are the emotions you go through? Like, how do you navigate that going from like maybe running, X miles a week to you got to be on crutches tomorrow?
Zero.
Like, yeah, what is going through your mind? Like, how do you manage that?
Um, I mean, definitely some tears. So I mean, it's like grief. Like this is actually what a therapist that I worked with before. She
Mm,
she wrote this book on grief, and it's like there was this really like this epiphany moment where I was like, oh my gosh, that's exactly what I'm going for. I'm like grieving running. I'm grieving this
mm,
like past version of myself.
mm,
And it's like I'm angry, like, and then there's like the bargaining, like I'm not really injured, like it's
yeah.
totally fine. And then like the sadness and then the
Mm,
acceptance, like then kind of working through it. So I mean, and that can happen over the course of a day, a week,
mhm,
whatever. And because I think I've had a lot of practice with this, that time frame has shrunk a little bit,
mhm,
and I'm able to then grasp on to these things of like what I can do,
mhm.
and try to shift it into more of a positive mindset as opposed to being stuck in anger or sadness or like blaming myself or all of these other things. But I mean, the biggest thing too, you just have to feel it. You have to
Mhm.
feel it. Um, so, and I will add something to that. You have to feel it, and you can't let yourself get stuck there.
Mm.
So feel it and then pick a time point. Like, it's okay if you like, if you want to, like, sometimes if it's like, if the first time, that you're injured or whatever, like, it's okay to feel like that for a week.
Mhm.
I mean,
Mhm.
like, give yourself at least a little time frame in each day to not feel it, to escape it a little
Mm.
bit, to like go with friends or be able to be distracted, do something where you don't have to ruminate on it,
Mm.
just to pull yourself out of it, because then, because yeah, you don't wanna be stuck in the depths of all those feelings too long. Um,
Mhm.
and then, like, because your brain is meant to work through it. It's meant to move on. It's meant to,
Yeah.
like, then problem solve, and, humans are meant to be resilient. So,
Mhm.
and we're meant to heal if we just
Yeah.
give ourselves the time and the substances to do so.
Totally. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, the body is absolutely incredible. I mean, as you have experienced yourself from like the traumatic injury, it's like you can be so broken physically and the
Mhm.
body can come back from that, which is just I just think it's so incredible. But okay, so examples of things like I have seen athletes like
Mm,
they've shared with me that they've experienced when there's been things like this, whether it's they, crashed their bike or, got a stress fracture or,
mm.
who knows, I've had so many random things happen with clients, like tried to do a jump and then on his birthday and broke his collarbone. It's
Ah,
like, on the mountain bike. It's like, come on. But, the things that I hear at that, like after that point, right, is like, we're obviously trying to speed up healing as best as we can with nutrition, but there's the thoughts of like, well, I'm going to lose all my fitness or, my body composition is going to change to X status. Like how, yeah, with your background in your schooling too, like your grad school experience in sports psych. And I'm sure you work with folks on that as well. And by the
mhm.
way, listeners, Hillary does coaching with this. So you can go to our website and work with her if you're struggling with this. But for like a quick toolkit for our listeners, do you have any suggestions or personal experience of like how
Mhm.
did you experience those things and how would you navigate stuff like that? Is it
Yeah.
still kind of like feeling it and
Yeah, that's a good question. And I mean, it is really hard. So I mean, so something like, especially with my first injury, there was no, ifs, ands, or but about it. Like, I was losing fitness because I really couldn't do anything, right?
right?
But I think it's like, really, to start losing fitness and really detrain, you have to basically be sedentary for, I think it's up to 3 weeks, like 21
Mm,
days. But then there's other things that you can do to be, like, really fit. Like, I
mm,
mean, if we're thinking about, so endurance athletes, like maybe lower extremities, right? It's like, it's not pretty. It's not, like, gonna be the most, entertaining form of exercise. But it's usually involves a gym, and it usually
mhm,
involves, like, getting creative. For me,
mhm,
I know that, like, keeping your body active, like, it helps mood, it helps your neurochemistry, it helps, it helps healing, it helps everything. And so it's like, if one thing is injured, trying to problem solve and being like, okay, well then what are the things that I can do? It's not going to look
mhm,
the same. Maybe I can't do it to the same extent, but what can I do? Instead of, I think, runners, and a lot of, I was this way too, I would basically be like, oh, it's a consolation prize. If I'm not running, it doesn't count.
mm,
Absolutely, it does count. And it's like those little things like BFR. Like, I would go 30 minutes on an Airdyne bike and be dying because, like, not for like cardiovascularly, but like in my muscles, they were just aching because of like this, blood flow restriction.
mhm,
Um, and there's adaptation that happens there. Or, like, you could put the cuffs in your arms and do like the, like, what is it? The airs, like the hand bike.
mhm,
Things like that. A rower.
mhm,
I would put my foot on a skateboard and, like, like, push with my good leg and go back and forth. Same with,
mhm,
like, the Airdyne bike, prop my foot up on a trash can and then, like, cycle the other ones until I could then, like, passively move it and not put weight through it. A ski erg, like, sit down. If you can't stand, sit down in a chair and pull on your
mhm,
arms. Like, I mean, there's so many sports out
mhm,
there, and there's so many ways to keep your body active. There's so many ways to move.
mhm,
And I feel like we just get siloed into this thing that we do.
mm.
one thing, and we're like our personality or like our self-worth can almost be tied up in this thing and
Yeah.
activity that we do. And so for me, I've tried, even though it has been uncomfortable and I haven't always enjoyed it, every injury has been this learning process of like, oh wow, I get to like learn another sport, or I get to, break outside of this definition of, runner. Like, what is that?
Mhm.
No, I'm an athlete. And that encompasses so many things and so many sports that I don't do, which are like crazy hard and challenging. And yeah, and I think with that too, it's like, sure, I mean, the physical part of like, body composition and things like changing, right? I mean, I've experienced that over the course of injuries of like, what a cycling like fitness looks like versus run fitness and all this
Mm.
other stuff. And, you know, here's the thing. I think we care about it a lot. And I think that as we like a collective, we like, if I'm thinking about it, it's like we think that everyone cares so much of like what we look like and all of this other stuff. But there's so much more to a physical appearance of a person. Like,
Mhm.
I care about, like, your character and, like, the
Mhm.
who you are as a person. Like, what is it that makes you keep going and want to, like, explore? If you can't run, okay, well, I'm gonna focus on this and learn as much as I can about this. Doesn't mean you don't miss it. But,
Mhm.
like, sure, and if your body changes because of it, well, so what? But the biggest thing I wanna say with this is, like, we think that so many people care, but they don't care. Honestly, everyone is so busy thinking about themselves, which kind of like it's like a little bit yikes, but
Yeah.
it's so true. We think
Yeah.
that everyone cares, and we're now so in this world of like, whatever AI and all of this stuff is on social media and stuff like this. All that crap is fake anyways. So like, doesn't matter.
That's
Like,
true.
focus on something that matters, and at the end of the
Yeah.
day, everyone's gonna get old, everyone's gonna get wrinkly, so whatever, just work on
Yeah.
being a good person.
Totally. Yes. Preach it to the choir. I
That's the
love
stuff
it.
that lasts, that's the stuff that matters.
Yes.
So, if
Oh,
someone
man.
likes you for your six pack, well, then maybe you should find a new friend.
Right. Agreed. Agreed. Amazing. So with these toolkits and stuff, obviously it kind of shouted you out, but do you want to tell us a little bit about maybe like what type of coaching you do with your, obviously, keeping it private, but like what type of coaching do you do with your clients, and
Yeah.
maybe some tools or ways like listeners might want to
Yeah,
need to work with you?
so I coach obviously, like, to prepare for a race, like typical coaching. I
Hmm.
have a background in neuroscience and physiology, like, I'm super science nerd, so can do all of that, and just, like, with the experience I have as an athlete, but also, different certifications as a coach,
Hmm.
but then I was huge passion of mine is just after my whole experience with the big injury recovery. I don't think I would have ever gotten back to sport and sport at an elite level if I didn't pay attention to mindset and mental performance. And so that's
Hmm.
what I'm back in school now for is applied sports psychology. I did have like a certification before, but I wanted just more schooling and just to learn about like the research. And
Hmm.
it's really been pushing me as a athlete, as a coach. And I've been learning so much and I love it. And so I write routinely about these concepts on my Substack. It's all linked to my Instagram or on my website. And then, like, but this is the coaching I do. So I do run coaching for races, but I also like
Hmm.
work with, high performers. I work with runners who are struggling with mental performance. I work with some entrepreneurs or scientists that are, trying to kind of do the same thing. Like high performers, it's the same concepts. We're trying
Hmm.
to work on problem solving, on focus, on confidence.
Mm.
And yeah, like I've been doing these series on Instagram, like, it's kind of fun, like basically trying to revamp. I have one on like self-belief as of like basically our brain is just, responding to stories that we tell it. And if
Mm.
we can actually change that narrative, it can
Mhm.
make us hyper capable. And some like these concepts of like confidence actually isn't built in big moments. It's a skill that you can train, and it's built
Mm.
in, basically these little small wins, these small moments. And yeah, like the biggest part of like the hardest part about injury is not physical, and we have to train our brains just like we
Mm.
train our bodies. So yeah, it's something I'm really passionate about, and it's really cool to be able to work with. I've been working with several athletes who are kind of recovering from injuries themselves, and
Mm.
like working on that mental piece because
Yeah.
it plays a huge role in healing.
Mhm.
Um, and then some people who are going through, like career changes and trying
Mm.
to figure out like their passions and like
Mhm.
how, or people who are going through bigger life changes, like going through a divorce or, yeah, like just things like this. It's all
Yeah.
about like how to keep performing and I think believing in yourself, betting on yourself and shaping that narrative that I think has the power to, you know, like has the power I think to make or break you in these
Mhm.
kind of bigger moments. And of course we use them. I think athletics is a perfect way to practice
Mhm.
these mindset tips. But we use them in everyday life. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's super fun. I like it.
Applicable all over the place. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you work with a sports psych at any point through your career as well? Yeah.
And I
Nice.
still work with one. Like, it's
Oh,
just like
good.
I'm a coach, but I also am coached.
Yes. Yes.
It's
It's
like
important.
I need I need those like the forest for the trees. I cannot do it
Totally.
for myself. It's like,
Yes.
but this is kinda like the point. It's like I'm a coach, but I really believe it's like we're all in this together. It's like the
Mhm.
collective.
Yeah.
Like if I'm going to be an expert, this also means that I'm going to be studying and learning about this my entire life. It's like
Yeah.
it's kind of that whole thing of like falling in love with the process of it all
Mhm.
and never like to be a master of something is to be constantly learning and a constant beginner. And
Yeah.
that's something that just keeps me coming back to science and keeping coming back to sport too.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I would imagine in the sports psych field too, it's like you're just continuing to learn. I mean, the science is just like producing more and more findings, right? With like different, I don't know, I don't know the brain. I know I could tell you about nutrition and other stuff, but like
Yeah,
I could only imagine like how it's got to be similar to the nutrition field. There's just constantly new stuff coming
totally.
out all the
Mhm.
time. And
And like
it's like,
yeah, like consciousness and sleep and how we
mhm,
process things. It's like
right.
it's so crazy. I mean, even just like in the past, like oh gosh, it was in the '80s that we started to even understand fatigue and how
Oh,
it was regulated in the body. Like before that,
whoa.
we thought it was just like, okay, you run out of glycogen stores in your muscles, well then boop, you can't ride a bike anymore. But it's actually it's this regulation of your brain. Motivation
Mhm.
plays a part in it. Like how valuable do we assess the reward for completing this task and working really hard? It's very nuanced. And this is all involved in like brain regulation and yeah, literally how we feel about an exercise. Like it's crazy. So we're
So
still
fascinating.
yeah, we're learning all these things. Like in this research was established in the mid '80s and now they're still
Wow.
publishing stuff about it now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. That makes me think, so this is kind of off topic, but also kind of on topic. The whole like conversation around like carbs per hour, and there's
Mm,
kind of this argument, like some of the studies are starting to push towards like 120 grams of carbs per hour. Some of them even greater, and they continue to see performance benefits.
mm,
But then the argument is, are they actually oxidizing and utilizing those carbohydrates as a fuel source? Or kind of maybe
mm.
what you're saying, is it this mental thing where your brain thinks there's food coming or no, like I don't know.
Well,
It is very
it's
interesting.
actually this is interesting too, right? Because can you actually metabolize all of that 120 grams of carb per hour? I would argue no, because that's also like not everyone. It's a trainable thing. I think you
Right.
can. But then, yeah, are we utilizing it all? But we know for a fact that like we can trick our brain to think that like if you put like if you're dehydrated or you like or if you're in exercise, you're hungry, you can put like literally a drop of glucose on the tongue or salt on the tongue and it starts to basically basically start the pathway of like okay we're sugar on board like and
Yeah.
or like the osmolality like figuring out like your regulation of hydration systems in your
Hmm.
brain that is enough to stimulate it. So we know that we can trick the system in a sense. I mean, obviously, if you keep, I'm assuming you'd keep doing that for like the whole thing, you run out of energy at some point. Like,
Right.
but like, so yeah, it's like it's so fascinating.
Yeah.
But I don't know, it's cool. That's also what's exciting to me. It's like we're all like
Hmm.
experiments.
Yeah. Totally.
If we
Yes.
pay so much attention, I mean, I know this is a nutrition podcast and it's very important to obviously like, feel your body. Like if I'm healing from something, I'm not just going to be like, Not gonna be like, oh, I'm just gonna like, not pay attention to my diet and like, have my self-talk being like, I'm healing. Okay, no, I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that there's equal parts here that they
Yeah.
both work together. And
Hmm.
I mean, but also it's like, one of the biggest fuel sources for your brain is glucose. So
Right. Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
plenty of glucose. If I'm not running, I've been using lots of brain power for all this other stuff I'm working on.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Or so you're still in school right now for your second master's, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And when's graduation date for that? Is it coming up?
Next year.
Next year. Okay.
So yeah.
Got
So
it.
I'm like halfway done. But
Nice.
yeah,
This
no,
is awesome though.
it's so cool. Like like I
Yeah.
said, learning so much.
Yeah. It makes such a difference too when like you're in grad school for something you're passionate about.
Mhm.
Or in school in general for something you're passionate about.
Yeah, it's been really a big change because like reading the research papers for like in human studies and like talking about all this is like so different than what I was doing at grad school.
Oh,
So it's
yes.
stretching me in some good ways. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so I do want to be mindful of your time here. So I mean, well, assuming the timeline goes according to plan with the healing, like what is the game plan kind of like going down the road for the rest of 2026?
Oh, so I'm not sure exactly yet, but I am pivoting. I am doing, like I said, I really love to ride my bike. I can ride my bike. So I just got out on it today. And I think it's because I'm a little sweaty. But
Tune in
I
on the
had to like
YouTube.
layer up too because it's cold. But yes, I think actually I might do Unbound. Like
Oh,
I've
fun.
done the I want to do the Unbound 200, but I'm gonna have
Yeah.
to make sure that everything goes according to
Yeah.
plan. So I basically have that as a goal, but like I'm not holding on to it too tightly. It's just
Yeah.
fun to maybe train for. And then yeah, like a few races like Steamboat Gravel, I'm doing that.
Mm.
It's here. I know the owners, Amy,
Hmm.
and Ryan, and uh yeah, and then I don't know. I still have OCC on my schedule. I
Mm.
qualified for that.
Nice.
And so we'll see. I have to see how the recovery goes. I think I have
Yeah.
some time to make the decision if I need to defer it. But then, there's some other cool things. There's always some really cool races. I think it's like just like, in the meantime, I think I've actually just through my whole, recovery story, like I've run 100-mile races and I just, you know, was on the vertical mountain running team for the VK last year
Yeah.
for Team USA. So I do have some range. And so it's
Hmm.
kind of exciting. I'm like, okay, well, if I can't run ultras this season or until later in the season, like I'm
Yeah.
going to try some VKs. And there's some cool ones that I've been looking at. So, still I was signed up for Broken Arrow Triple
Mm.
Crown and I might do the VK there, even if I'm not going
Nice.
to be super fit running, whatever.
Yeah.
It's like cool. And then yeah, there's some other VKs to do, some shorter distance stuff
Wow.
that can still kind of get my fix of trail running as I'm, getting things up and running.
Yeah.
So again, trying to focus on the positives there.
Yeah. That's
Um,
awesome. Those
but
all are going to be, I mean, the gravel rides too, like the Unbound and SBT, like those will be
yeah.
fun for sure if you do
And
those as
and then
well.
like I mean, obviously like school, I have a lot of other projects I'm working on. And actually it's funny, like I was just talking to my nutrition sponsor today, Fuel Goods and
Oh,
Flow
yeah.
Formulas. Flow
Hmm.
Formulas is based here. And so it's been really cool to do these projects we like and like push them maybe down the pipeline. Actually, around Unbound, the end of May,
Hmm.
we're launching a new like a high carb drink mix.
Oh,
So
nice.
and it's like I helped develop a flavor, so like look out for that and like and it's
Nice.
cool because I'm from Colorado. Flow is
Hmm.
based here in Colorado. It's really good ingredients.
Hmm.
And so there's like a little Colorado twist on it to like what like
Okay.
how we got the flavor and like the
Yeah.
and stuff. So that's going to be super fun. So yeah, like working on projects like that
Yeah.
with my sponsors and in the meantime as I'm getting back up and running, yeah, it's always there's so many things to do.
Yeah. Amazing. Yeah. The variety, I mean, is nice. Like keep things, interesting too, I feel like.
Mm.
Okay. Well, I'm going to jump back to, well, your two truths and a lie, and
Oh
then
yeah.
you can tell some other, well, maybe some fun stories about that. We'll see. Okay. So you said your favorite color is purple. Your father is from the UK and
Mhm.
you worked at a chemical company. I thought the color purple was a lie. Is that right?
You're right. It's hilarious though because I wrote it on a purple sticky note. Okay, so This is funny because like my book, I thought that this is why I chose it as a lie because
Mm.
like, like, well, I have like my Mantras in Motion training log and there's my little Hilly Goat logo and it's like
Oh, nice.
purple. And my book, I don't have it here, but it's purple. And everyone's like, your favorite color is purple. No, my favorite color is not purple. I actually don't discriminate. I love all of the colors. Like if you ever see me, it's not painted right now, but normally my fingernails are painted like a different color on every nail.
Oh,
So my favorite color is all the colors. So that is the lie.
love that. Love that. And then yes, you did work at a chemical company. Is that because
Yeah.
was that through your dad?
No, so I worked at a chemical company right out of college. I was a chemist, like an organic
Mm.
chemistry. That was my major, organic chemistry and
Hmm.
Spanish. Huh. And then,
Wow.
and then I was basically deciding what I wanted to do, and I was working at a chemical company making solder for circuit boards. I was part of like their research and
Whoa.
development. It was just a really interesting job I had for about a year
Yeah.
as I was making my decision of what I kind of wanted to do. Some people travel the world in their gap year. I work at a chemical company and I've had plenty of travel since then. So,
Yeah.
and then,
That's
yeah, then
great.
I went to grad school for neuroscience and physiology,
Oh,
like applying my chemistry more to like biochem
yeah.
projects. But yeah, and
So
then, yeah,
cool.
my father's from the UK. He's a Brit. So it was funny. He's a scientist. Both my parents are
Mm.
scientists. My dad's a biochemist. He was a chemist and physicist at
Mm.
Bozeman and then
Oh,
got a job
cool.
at Colorado State in the biochem department. And
Nice.
then my mother is a parasitologist, so microbiologist. So we're a very
Whoa.
sciencey family. My sister's a nurse. We have very interesting conversations. I literally just I rode my bike to meet them for lunch the other day, and I had my lab results back. And so at the coffee shop, we're just talking about like
Oh my
lipid
gosh.
metabolism and how like your cholesterol and how it's metabolized in the liver and what you could do if your LDH is high and all this other stuff, like more fiber, bind up those bile acids. Anyways, this is my
Yes.
and these are the conversations we have.
That's
I love
great.
dearly and I love my science family.
Yes, that
Um,
is so neat. I love that.
I'm still a scientist. I think I am.
Yeah,
Even if I'm
totally.
not working in the lab, it just takes
Yeah.
a different form. Yeah.
The parasitology thing's so fascinating. Does
Mm.
is she working like with like Giardia and stuff like
Yeah,
that? Like
so
do
she worked so this is the coolest thing. So I was like, I love bugs. I could have put that on my two-personal lie 'cause I feel like everyone knows that about me. But, I wanted to be an entomologist, and as a kid, I was just fascinated by this. So she worked in the veterinary teaching hospital at Colorado State
Oh.
University because a lot of these parasites, like we think of like heartworm or hookworm,
Mm.
like these things that like dogs get or horses get that can kill
Mm.
them. And
Mhm.
there's a lot of that agriculture and work and like equine work in Fort Collins. And so it's
Mhm.
like a big station at Colorado State
Mm.
University. So I'd come into the lab like, after school because my mom still worked. And so like we'd come in and sometimes I would love coming in because there'd be these huge jars of like horses' hearts with like literally heartworms. Like it
Whoa.
is insane. Like literally that's what they died. They died of a heart attack because picture this huge horse's heart, which is like
Yeah.
huge. And like you can't hold it with two hands. And
Wow.
what's coming out of it, it's worms. And basically
Wow.
the horse died of a heart attack because the worms, there was no blood that could get through because the worms were blocked.
Wow.
Crazy. And so I would take this stuff to show and tell, and I had, all the boys loved me. Just kidding.
Oh
The
my
boys
god.
were scared of me. Um, but I didn't care because I had science. I was telling them
Mhm.
about heartworms. And then, so Giardia for sure. My mother
Yeah.
actually got her start. She was a microbiologist. And so
Whoa.
and she worked in Nepal in the Peace Corps. And basically, people were dying of like, Giardia or dehydration due to like
Mhm.
preventable parasites that were in the
Mhm.
water. And so the first thing that she got me when I started trail running was a life straw to
I was
filter
gonna
Giardia.
yeah, I was gonna say.
But yeah, I've actually found some really cool things. Like there's like a horsehair parasite
Whoa.
that I found literally in a water, like at the base of Fern Canyon here in Boulder, where
Whoa.
it's like it's so crazy. This parasite, its life cycle, it's like in like a deer or something, and basically, it basically goes through the deer. It's like the host, and then
Mhm.
poops it out. And then so then it's like near water or whatever. It gets into the water, and then
Mm.
like the little bugs or insects can kind of like drink the water and
Mhm.
get the parasite. And
Oh.
if it goes into like a bug or something, it can literally like it goes somehow into the brain. and it
Oh,
changes the behavior of this little grasshopper that then makes it go back to water and like drown itself, like jump in the water. So then it can like poof and then
do its
yeah,
recycle
restart
again.
the life cycle. So you
I've
can either like
heard stuff
enter it
about
into your
this.
or like, the bugs or it's crazy. It's crazy. So filter your water, people. You don't want that.
Yes, that is wild. Wow, so wild. Oh my goodness. I could like
Sorry,
nerd out and
I
talk.
could go
I
on.
want to hang out with you and your family at the dinner
I'm such
table.
a nerd. I'm such a nerd.
I love it. I think
Mm.
it's so rad. Okay, so we got your teachers and lie, got an idea of what's coming down the pipeline. And then for our listeners, remind them again, where can they find you, follow you, work with you, all of that stuff?
Yeah, so one stop shop. I like have everything linked to my Instagram and also that's Hilly Goat Climbs and
Mhm.
then or Hillary Allen and then my website is hillaryallen.com and there's all that info on there. And I also mentioned my Substack, but that's all like
Yeah,
linked in there. So
perfect.
yeah,
We will link all that in the show notes for the
thank
listeners so they
you.
can jump right over there. And then check out her book. Check out
Yes,
her
out
book.
and back.
Yeah.
And if you like it, hopefully I'll have another one in a year or so.
Yay! That's super exciting. I'm pumped for you.
Yeah,
I will be ordering it. You got to let us know when it's out so we
I
can
will. I
cross
got it.
promote
Yeah,
it for you.
work it
Well,
out
this
for me.
yes, amazing. Well, this has been so fun as always, and super appreciate you sharing your journey with your injury and your healing and your toolkit nuggets with the mental side of things. I think is so helpful. I know our listeners will love it. So thank you so much, Hillary, for your time.
Thank you. It's such a pleasure.
To stay up to date with the Nutritional Revolution recent activities, follow Nutritional Revolution on Instagram and Facebook, and sign up to receive the Nutritional Revolution newsletters on the Nutritional Revolution website. If you guys enjoyed today's content, please hit subscribe below to stay up to date on the latest Nutritional Revolution posts. Have a healthy day.